At some fucking point, you're gonna have to call it like it is. You can't keep playing the game. At some point, you gotta know the difference between whether they're actually fucking with you or not. At some point, you just gotta make that call yourself. Because honestly, they might not tell you. They might not tell you. Okay? Some people either just don't have it in them, they don't want to hurt your feelings, or, you know, it's probably not what you're thinking it is, right? At some point, you got to decide for yourself and realize it's not what you think it is. Or it's not going to happen like you want it to happen, right? What do I mean by this specifically? I mean people in your life. I'm going to read you something I wrote a long time ago. This was actually a year ago. As I'm looking at this, March 15th. So fucking long ago. So, I remember around this time I remember there was this girl that I was trying to pursue and all. And, you know, I had been, at this point, you know, I had started to notice her behavior versus my behavior, her feelings versus my feelings. And I just kind of saw that there was an imbalance. And, you know, I wrote in order to cope with a lot of my issues at this time when it came to the emotional vibrations that were going on inside of me. So I wrote this. I said, sooner or later, you got to make the call yourself. They might decide not to say anything and just expect you to know. But we let ourselves become dumb and delusional in love like we always do. And that's okay at times. It's what makes love so amazing. However, we need to be real and understand what's what. Recognize if they are putting in the time and effort into you that you give to them. Don't stick around if they ain't showing you the same amount of love that you showing to them. Know when it's real and know when it's just an illusion. Okay. So, again, I wrote this a year ago. But the point still stands. If someone's not going to give you the time, if someone doesn't put the same amount of energy into you that you invest into them, you've got to be able to make that call yourself and realize that it's time to just cut loose. Now, when I say this, man, don't just assume that it's always them that's, and this is a disclaimer, don't always assume it's them not putting in the work and then say cut off because they're not doing their part. Because at the beginning, it might not be you doing your part, right? So just keep that in mind. So don't automatically make the assumption now if you're watching this and you're like, oh shit, she hadn't been showing me the same amount of effort, maybe we about to break up. Or, oh yeah, you know, I'm going to stop talking to this girl. First off, determine whether you're actually putting in the amount of love and work and, you know, time that you say you're putting in or that you feel you're putting in, right? Determine if you're doing that first, okay? And be honest about that. If you feel you could do better, then start doing better. How can you do better? Start doing better. And if better isn't taking it anywhere, then yes. At that point, I would say cut your losses. Because then, I can say at that point, when you're trying your best, you're actually showing more, becoming more vulnerable, giving more, and you're doing your best to express yourself to this person, and then showing them how you feel, and they're not doing anything with it. Stop spilling yourself to somebody who doesn't want to take you in, right? Stop spilling yourself to somebody who doesn't want to actually take on that spill, right? We're all spills of mess when it comes to it. When it comes to us and our energy, dude, we're all spills of mess. So if somebody's showing that they don't even want to take that spill of mess when you're expressing it to them, don't even waste your time. Like, make that call yourself. Cut your losses loose. And it might not be the easiest thing to accept that because, you know, you may have been caught in reality. You may have been caught in an ideal situation, an ideal thing that you wanted to happen. You wanted you and this person to come together. You've been working so long for it. You've been putting so much into it. And now it just looks like it's just this, right? It's like your vision just has to completely disintegrate in a second, right? Obviously, probably won't happen in a second. You know, it's going to have to take time to just kind of fade away like the clouds in the sky to just kind of move, right? So, but you gotta pop that bubble. That reality that you've been picturing, that expectation you've been holding yourself to have happen, that you've wanted to have happen, and it doesn't happen. Guess what? There's not really much you can do about it. You just got to call it like it is. So I encourage you, try this. So if there's a person in your life right now and you feel that this dynamic is going on, where you're giving your time and energy to someone that you really care about, that really matters to you, that you hold great significance in your heart for, and you're giving them and you're showing them and you're really putting everything that you can to them, and you feel you're not getting that back. And I mean really not getting that back. I'm talking about like the people who won't even like, who are just like, huh, when you really spill to them, right? It's just like, oh, okay, right? Those fucking people, that's who you got to cut off. They're not, because let me tell you something, man. If somebody really cares about you, they will take your spill. They will take your spill. Okay? If they're not willing to take your spill, that's a relationship that ain't even gonna fucking work to begin with. So get out of that. You know, like I don't know. Some of us may get trapped in the mindset that we can do something that'll make them change their mind. No, it doesn't work like that. Okay? Their mindset is their mindset. And if they're not willing to take on the emotional spills that you give them, the expressions you show, the feelings that you have, and they're not open and accepting of that, don't stop giving it to them because they don't want it. Right? It's really the best way that people show whether they want it is just, do they give it back? You know? If they're not, don't show anymore. Okay? So to determine that dynamic's going on, you feel that's happening with somebody, give yourself a time period, right? What I did was I gave myself a time. Well, first I evaluated this. Was I giving my 100% best? Was I really giving my 111? Was I really giving my 120, my 135? Was I giving my best and more? Was I really doing that for this person? Am I really showing this for this person? And if the answer is yes, great. You're doing your honest best. Not your perceptual best either. Because here's the other thing I don't want you to get twisted. I don't want you to think that you're giving your best to somebody and they're not taking it because they don't care about you. Because there is another dynamic as well where you may be imposing your idea of love and affection onto them, but that's not the love and affection they need. So therefore, they're never actually in a position where they feel love. They just feel smothered, right? A great example that I saw in a video was that you know, like you take a sea creature from the water, right? You really love sea creatures. So you take it out of the water, you take it out the water. You go for a walk for it down the beach. You try to feed it Kit Kat bars. And then, you take flash photography pictures with it. And then, I don't know, you sleep with it at bed. And then all of a sudden when you wake up, it's dead. And then you're like, wait a minute, I fed you food, I took you for a walk, I slept with you, I made you feel comfortable, we took pictures, we had a great time. No, you had the great time. Them, you didn't consider anything on what they needed. That fish needed water, that fish had its own food, that fish had its own place that it needed to be. And you didn't nurture that. You took it and then showed it your expression of love. But you didn't show the fish the expression of love that it needed or that it wanted to see, right? So that dynamic can happen as well, where even if you are honestly giving your best, evaluate if it's what this person needs, right? And now what I'm going to say for that step, and this is really, really, honestly, I think this is a good point. Ask that person, just have intimate conversation. Share your thoughts at a very vulnerable level. Share your emotions at a very vulnerable level. Let your guard down and discuss with them and be very receiving and listen very closely to what they say. If they are not trying to strengthen the conversation, if they're not feeding anything back into that connection, they're not open to it, that's somebody you don't need to waste with. And when I say that, because you can't force connection. You can't force somebody to connect with you, right? You can't force you and somebody to be on the same page. You just have to come on to it, right? You guys have to be in agreement and alignment with each other that you guys want to do this. And if this person isn't open to being on the same page as you, then they're not going to connect with you. If they're not going to connect with you, there's no way for you to know and understand what this person needs as far as what affection and love is for them, right? And if you can't deliver that emotion, you can't deliver to their needs and wants, it's never going to happen. So that's somebody you need to drop, because if they don't want you being the one to fulfill that need, don't fuck with them. Just accept as it is. They don't want me they don't want me as the person who caters to their needs. That's fine. That's not the person you need to be with anyways. That's not the person you need to be giving your time to like that. So have conversations, ask questions, get to know them. And if they're not really letting you know them, right? If anytime you ask a deep question, they kind of like shakingly avoid it with simple answers, or anytime you try to get into a deep conversation and it just never gets deep at all, that's not somebody you should be spending fucking time with like that. If you're looking for that deep connection to understand them, right? Because they're not open to you. And if they're not open to you, you can't see what they want. If they don't want you to know what they want or need, how the fuck can you deliver? And you can't force it, so that's a way to know. If they're closing themselves off to you, if they're closing their energy off, they're closing their identity off to you, let them go. If you know that you're giving your best, give yourself some time and then really evaluate it, right? So say, okay, I'm giving my best. I'm going to make sure that I'm making this person feel loved as they are. I'm going to make sure I'm making this person feel great as they are, right? That I'm giving this person what they need and want. Listen to them, get to know them, try and deliver that to them. And if they don't take it up, or they really just do nothing with it, right? And when I say do nothing with it, when it's back to the beginning of the video where they're just kind of like, oh, okay, oh, thanks, okay, alright, got it. If they're giving you that shit, fuck them, back out. They don't deserve a big heart like yours if they don't want to take it. And that's up to them whether they want to take it or not. If they don't want to take your heart, don't waste your time giving it to them. They're trying to tell you without actually saying it. So, fuck them, move on somewhere else, right? So after you've evaluated that this person doesn't want to open up to you, you make the call. This person is not worth my time. The reality that I had envisioned is not the one that is for me. This is not the reality that's meant to occur. That's not the reality. This expectation I have formed up, right? Not existent. And here's another thing about expectation too. You may expect them to show a specific type of care, but if you don't know them and you're so caught up in what their definition of care and love is supposed to look like to you, that you can't understand their expressions of it, then you're never going to feel loved like you want. Why? Because you're so caught up in what it should look like, and because you're not getting what it should look like, and they're giving it to you, and you believe that you're not receiving anything from them, what happens? You dart the other direction. And they're just kind of standing there like, well, I do fucking care. What the fuck? Right? So that's, don't get so caught up in the expectation that it has to look a certain way. Their definitions, everyone expresses love in various ways. So be open to the fact that that's going to happen. Don't get so caught up in what it's supposed to look like. That's really my advice to know whether somebody is worth continuing with, right? Whether it's worth pushing on for the next step. Whether it's pushing on to make a relationship happen. Whether it's pushing on the relationship further. Whether it's making a relationship happen at all, right? Use these tips. Use what I've told you here. And if they're feeding it back to you and you feel right about it, go all in. If you don't feel right about it, if it feels like and I mean really, dull, man. If they're really not feeding you anything at all, they're just kind of like, yeah, okay. Oh, that's cool. Yeah. Okay, they're giving you dull, dry responses, man. Don't waste your time. Cut it loose. Get out. That person's not for you. I promise you, somebody better. Somebody will listen to you. Somebody is waiting for your big heart to go to them. Somebody is. I promise you that. Okay? And you're hearing it because the same shit happened to me. Okay? I'm promising you right now, if this is happening to you in your life, don't be afraid to cut it loose because somebody's not that far away listening. They're willing to listen to somebody with a big heart like yours. You just gotta let it happen. I'm Bo Mueller. This is my video. Talk to y'all next time.